Everybody's going to watch it, but we are broadcasting it live. So if there are people who are working. No. Don't worry. We won't identify anybody by name.
When you call out, say you.
We won't identify anybody by name. But if for some reason you are not able to make it to class, you'll be able to tune in and watch it. It will also be available afterwards if you want to go back and say, did she really say that or did he really say that? So you can go back and check that out. But I hope that this will not have a chilling effect. I hope it will not. If it does, we'll just nix it. We won't do it anymore. So don't worry. Soon we'll ignore. We'll even forget that it's there. But there is the story of the students who said to the professor, I won't be in class. Is it okay to record it? So the professor came in and he sees, there's a tape recorder, and then, next week there's 2 tape recorders, and the next week there's 3 tape recorders, and the 4th week the professor puts a tape recorder himself. So if you stop coming, we're just going to stop doing this at all, because I think the personal interaction is so important. Okay, so let's go. So let's learn a little bit today. We continue with Parshas Korach. I hope you liked the little teaser in the email, just so that just to get you a little bit excited about what we're doing. Okay. Okay. So we know that Korach has been taken care of. He's been knocked out of the picture. Dasan and Aviram have been knocked out of the picture. The 250 men have been knocked out of the picture. And now we have Bnei Yisrael complaining. Last week we actually began the complaints of Bnei Yisrael to Moshe and Aharon that, hey, what are you doing? You just killed a chunk of Bnei Yisrael, 250 people. According to what we learned, those were Nisim, those were very important people. Some say they were Bechoroim, they were the firstborn. But nevertheless, Bnei Yisrael are complaining, how could you do this? So page 828. So in 828 we have the following. We know they complained. So Pasuk Zayin, last week we did Pasuk Vav. Pasuk Zayin says, Vayihi bihi kahel ha'eda al Moshe al Haharon. And it was when the people gathered, bihi kahel, from the word kihila, the people gathered al Moshe al Aharon. What does it mean they gathered al Moshe and al Aharon? Says the Ibn Ezra, whenever you have the phrase of bihi kahel al, the reference is that it's a rebellion, right? It's a rebellion. Last night in Manhattan was Vayhi Kahel Al, if you will. Right? It's a rebellion against something or against someone. And that's the idea here, says the Ibn Ezra, that they were rebelling. Bnei Yisrael were now rebelling against Moshe and Aaron. They just saw what happened to Korach. They just saw what happened to Dasan and Aviram. They just saw what happened to these 250 people. And now what did they do? Now they're going to continue their rebellion. But now Bnei Yisrael are rebelling in their entirety. It wasn't like before it was Korach, before it was Dasan and Aviram, before it was the 250 people. Now Bnei Yisrael turned to Moshe, and according to the Ibn Ezra, they are all rebelling against Moshe and Aharon. In fact, we'll see this phrase of Vayikahel or Vayikalu Al appears in several places. Jump to page 492. 492 by the Egel HaZahav. Right, 492 by the Egel HaZahav. What does it say there? 492 Pasuk Aleph, the beginning of chapter 32. It says, Vayar ha'am ki boshesh Moshe laredes min hahar. Are you there already? This is finger gymnastics. And I see everybody's like, where are we today? Okay. Vayar ha'am ki boshesh Moshe laredas min hahar. This is the introduction to the Egel HaZahav. The people see that Moshe has not come down. Whatever boshesh means, a lot of different interpretations. He hasn't come down at the time they expected him to come down. And what happens? Page 494, Vayikahel ha'am al Aharon. What does it say? Vayikahel ha'am al Aharon. According to what the Ibn Ezra says in our pasuk, Vayikahel al means rebellion. And that's precisely what's happening. Vayomru elav, and the people said to Aharon, Kum aseh lano Elohim. Right? Come and make for us a God, v'chule, v'chule. Excuse me. So here, the first instance of rebellion, Vayikahel, or Vayikahel al. Jump to page 820. Right, not so far away from where we were, right? 820, the beginning of this rebellion with Korach. Pasuk Gimel, 820, verse 3. Vayikahalu al Moshe v'al Aaron. Right, the people have gathered. Right, Korach, Dasan, and Aviram have gathered. Vayikahalu al Moshe v'al Aaron vayomru alehem rav lochem. Right, too much. Rebel with the people are rebelling. Again, this idea, the same idea that Ibn Ezra says, Vayikahel, or here it's Vayikahalu al, indicates rebellion. So clearly in our pasuk, it indicates rebellion. The people are now rebelling yet again. One final time, very interesting, jump to page 842. This is not the final time the phrase appears. It's the final time that I'm going to do it this morning before we move on. 842. Miriam has died. Miriam Hanaviyah has died. 842, verse 2, pasuk bet. Right, 842. Miriam Hanaviyah has died. We know what happened when Miriam died. What stopped? The water stopped. Pasuk Beis says. So the end of pasuk Aleph. Tama sham Miriam vatikaver sham. Pasuk Beis v'lo hayamayim lo eda. There was no water. What happens? What's the result of no water? Vayikahalu al Moshe v'al Aharon. What are the people doing? According to the way the Ibn Ezra understands it, Vayikahalu al, the people are now rebelling. The slightest thing, right? We're rebelling. The people are rebelling. Okay. Vayarev ha'am im Moshe. The people quarreled with Moshe. Vayomru le'mor, and they said, "Velu gavanu bigva." Right? We should have died like everybody else. Right? You take us here. We don't have any water anymore. This is a rebellion. So very interesting. The Ramban here in this pasuk, and the pasuk that speaks about the rebellion of Bnei Yisrael against Moshe after Miriam died, the Ramban actually quotes our pasuk, the pasuk from this morning. And the Ramban advances a very interesting thesis, a very interesting idea. What does the Ramban say? The Ramban he has a long discussion about when God gets angry. Right? Because here by the water, we know what's happening by the water, right? What's going to happen now? What's the end of this story on page 842? Miriam dies, there's no water, they complain to Moshe. Moshe complains to God. What does God do? God says, okay, Moshe. Right? What does God say to Moshe? Before he says talk to the rock, he says, take your staff and go and speak to the rock that I'll show you. And you know what happens. Moshe goes, rather than talking to the rock, he hits the rock. Maybe he hits the wrong rock. He hits the rock a second time. Water comes out. And this is the sin for which Moshe doesn't get to go into Eretz Yisrael. Exactly what the sin was, there seems to be tremendous discussion among the poskim. Maybe because he hit the rock instead of speaking to the rock. Maybe because he was disrespectful. He disrespected Bnei Yisrael by the fact that he said, Shimuna Hamorim. Maybe he became, whatever it was, Moshe Rabbeinu transgressed here, and as a result of this, doesn't get to go into Eretz Yisrael. In the discussion of what precisely the transgression was, the Ramban has a long passage, and in the passage he talks about when God gets angry at us. So it's interesting. He said there are two kinds of complaints that Bnei Yisrael have about God.
God or Moshe?
God. They might complain to Moshe, but two kinds of complaints vis-a-vis what's happening between them and God. Number one is, hey, we don't have anything to eat. Hey, we don't have anything to drink. Okay? That's, right, that's, I remember growing up, by the way, you could never begin a sentence by hey. Right? What my mother said, hey is for horses. Every text message my kids send me starts with hey. Like, hello? Like, why are you doing that, right? It is. It really is.
It's not spelled the same way.
What?
It's not spelled the same way.
It's not spelled the same way.
It never was. Hey, hi, hey.
Oh, I don't know. No, they always start hey, H-E-Y, hey, you know, I'm like, and I want to respond and say hey is for horses, but then I'm going to think, you know, I said to my kids, I said to one of them the other day.
You won't get even that.
The other day I said to one of them, I said, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. So they looked at me and said, like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? Right? And then I said, you never heard of that expression? I said, did you ever hear about the expression, there's many ways to skin a cat? They were like, what? Where are you from? And like,
Do you live under
right?
a rock?
Like what world are you from? What planet are you from? But hey, anyway, so if they say to God, hey, we don't have any water, or hey, we don't have any food, they complain to God. What does God do? God doesn't get angry. God doesn't get angry. Right? He gives them what they want. Why? Says the Ramban, because when you complain about something which is essential, so God's very tolerant of your complaints. You know, you got to eat, you have to drink, you have to, you know, and God understands the complaints. So says the Ramban, when the Jewish people complain to God about something that they are missing that's essential in their minds, so God doesn't get angry. It's like a parent, he takes it, whatever. However, says the Ramban, when Bnei Yisrael complain about something which is, in the words of the Ramban, lechinam, right? Yit lonenu chinam, which means essentially, you know, you complain for no reason, right? You complain for no reason, right? I remember my grandfather, Alav Shalom. My grandfather, right? Exactly right. My grandfather had that expression. Since we're talking about expression, you say, "You're crying for no reason. I'll give you a reason. I'll give you a reason to cry." Where's the cat in nine tails? All right. Anyway, so you have this idea that says the Ramban, when Bnei Yisrael complain vayit lonenu chinam, they complain for no reason. Now, obviously, it's not no reason to Bnei Yisrael. They think they have a reason to complain. But what the Ramban is saying, God looks at it and says, this is what you're complaining about? You know, you're complaining. It's ridiculous. Then God gets angry at us. Right? The example that the Ramban gives of Bnei Yisrael complaining about something that is essential is their complaint here after Miriam died. They're complaining about water. Water is essential. You need water to live. So, as much as they complain, what year in the Midbar are we here? When Miriam died, what year is this? 40.
It's the end.
Right? Miriam dies at the end, right? We're at year 40, Miriam dies. Right? So you would think by now they would, right, they would have chapped it. Right? By now they would have chapped it. But they didn't. Nevertheless, God doesn't get angry. Why? Because it is something that's essential to them. In the language of Ki ka'asher tzrichim b'mechiyasam davar, they need something to live. Oh, God says, okay, I understand you complain. Okay, not a problem, not a big deal. However, when they complain lichinam, or chinam as the Ramban says, what's the example that he brings of that? So that's our pasuk. Right, that's our pasuk. Page 828. That's our pasuk. That what is it? What is the pasuk say? Vayihi bihi kahel ha'eda al Moshe v'al Haron. What are they complaining about? I mean, in their eyes, it's something significant. What is it? It's the fact that these 250 people just got killed, right, in some divine manifestation of God's unhappiness. Right, toast, charcoal. That's what happened. But in God, from God's perspective, this is what you're complaining about, right? It's not. These people were rebelling, right? These people were committing a direct affront against me, says God. And this is what you're complaining about? So that's why God gets angry. So says the Ramban.
God is angry at the people for complaining about
Correct.
it, not at Moshe. The people were angry at Moshe because of the death of the 250 people. God is not angry.
No, the people were angry at Moshe, but they're really directing this anger of at Moshe, right, to God. They don't think Moshe didn't. Although we did learn last week they thought maybe Moshe did this on his own. But here's the anger, here's the complaint, and God now is going to get angry, and we'll see what God does as a result of his anger. But again, he's not angry because he gets angry every time Bnei Yisrael complain. He's angry because of what they're complaining about. It's almost like advanced parenting. Basic parenting is parenting 101. This is parenting 102, right? Parenting 101 was a prerequisite. In parenting 102, what do you learn? You learn there's different kinds of complaints from your children, and you have to respond differently to their complaints. Some of their complaints are very valid, right? Very valid because of what it means to them, and some of their complaints are not so valid, and we as parents, I should say, have to respond differently. We can't respond to all of the complaints in the same way. We need to be able to teach our children, or we need to be able to teach our grandchildren, that there are some things in life that are indeed worth complaining about, and their complaints can be motivation to do something, and there are other things in life that it does not pay to complain about. Because maybe they can't be resolved, and complaining is a waste of effort, or for whatever other reason. The Rav, Zichrono Livracha, when he wrote and when he spoke about the Shoah, right? The Rav, I guess this is a good reminder, right? The Rav would say that thinking about why the Shoah happened is a wasted effort, because we are never going to be able to figure out, to comprehend the scope of that evil we don't have, right? God didn't make us with that ability. So it's only going to be wasted effort, wasted energy, wasted emotion, that to be stuck in trying to explain philosophically why that happened, Rav Soloveitchik would say that's not going to be productive. Productive means, where do we go from here on? That's what's productive. Where do we go from here on? So sometimes we need to teach our children that complaining about something is not productive, is not energy well spent, it's not productive. One has to think about where to go with it. Yeah. Yes, lady in the back. Yes.
Is this going to be like a Trump tweet where, you say, why did he have to do that? But,
Did you say a Trump tweet?
All right. So
No, without
before
no.
I forget my question.
I mean, politically?
Yeah,
Go ahead. Okay, go ahead.
Use all of those things in the middle of the night. But my reaction, though, to your description doesn't take into account that in this case, the people were reacting to something that was definitely a godlike decision, that was not in their purview. In other words, it was a decision of a god, rather than a decision that they had to understand or not understand. So by reacting this way, they were questioning his all-knowing judgment.
Right, so I think what you're saying is that, yes, they might have been complaining to Moshe, right? But what they were complaining about was clearly a divine manifestation of punishment. So by doing that, they are complaining against God.
Right.
And again, one can say, that's a wasted effort, right? To complain against God, right? To complain against God is a wasted effort. And maybe if we take the Ramban to a different level, we're saying that's where the Ramban that's where God gets upset. In other words, if you want to complain about the fact that you don't have water, you don't have food, you don't have shelter, it's too cold, whatever. Okay, so I understand where that complaint is coming from, but you're complaining about my administering of justice in the world. You can't comprehend that. So if you can't comprehend that, why are you complaining? Why are you getting involved? I think perhaps maybe that's where it's going.
Right.
Okay. Just as since you mentioned the Trump tweet, I don't want to get involved in politics, but I tweeted out yesterday morning before davening, right? I don't tweet that often, but I certainly don't tweet in the middle of the night. What? What does tweet mean? It's a Persian word for communicating via social media, right? Right. So I tweeted out. Are we saying Hallel or Tachanun this morning in davening? Right? Right.
But I didn't mention it.
Oh, right. So that's what I tweeted out. Are we saying Hallel or Tachanun in davening? I won't share with you the responses, which ran the gamut. But in addition to that question, I tweeted out the expression of Lev Malachim Biyad Hashem. Right, Lev Malachim Biyad Hashem, which means that the heart of kings is in the hands of Hashem. Right now, right. So then somebody said to me, "Well, what's the source for that?" So I was like, I don't know. I had to do some quick research. It's actually a reference. It's referenced in, I think it's Mishlei. I tweeted out the reference afterwards. I think it's in Mishlei where it says, right, in Mishlei it says that just like Hashem enables a river to go in whatever direction he wants. In other words, you look at a map, you look at a river, right? Why is the river going like this, right? Or like this? Why doesn't? Because Hashem, for whatever reason, decides the way that he wants the river to go, for whatever part of his plan. So too, says the Pasuk, Hashem directs the hearts of malachim, of kings, of rulers, in whatever direction he, with a capital H, wants. Right? That's the concept. That's the source of Lev Malachim Biyad Hashem. So whether you said Hallel or whether you said Tachanun on Wednesday morning, it's really a little bit short-sighted because the bottom line is it's in the Eibishter's hands. This is in a Kadosh Baruch Hu's hands, right? This is in a Kadosh Baruch Hu's hands. Any which way, right? I said I would have tweeted out the same question if Hillary had won, right? Hallel or Tachanun, right? So either way, whoever would have won, it's an irrelevant. Look, we have to do our hishtadlus.
The answer is the same for both.
Right, correct. Right, we have to do our hishtadlus, but the bottom line is we live in our perspective of the world is Lev Malachim Yad Hashem. Okay, back to the pasuk. Okay. You see how easy it is to get me distracted? All right. So the pasuk continues. The Bnei Yisrael complain Vayhi bihi kahel ha'edah al Moshe v'al Haron. While they were complaining, what happened? Vayifnu el ohel moed. Vayifnu el ohel moed. What does that mean? Vayifnu el ohel moed. They turned their attention el ohel moed, to the ohel moed. Okay, so let's just get an idea. Where are we? Where did this happen? So if you remember, the 250 people complained, the 250 people who complained against the selection of the Kohanim were told to bring their fire pans with ketoras, with the incense. Where did they do it? They didn't do it in a baseball field in Shevet Ruvain. They did it in front of the El HaMoed. Right? They did it here in the center, in front of the El HaMoed. So that's where this discussion is taking place, by the Ohel Moed. Vayifnu el Ohel Moed, in the middle of this complaint or tirade of Bnei Yisrael against Moshe, what happens? Suddenly everybody turns their attention to the Ohel Moed. Why? V'hinei chisahu he'anan V'yera kvod Hashem. What happens? In the midst of this complaint of Bnei Yisrael against Moshe and Aaron, over the deaths of the 250 men, and probably over Korach, Dasan, and Aviram, at least according to some Mefarshim, what happens? Divine message. The cloud of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's presence, Labriut, the cloud of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's presence has now descended on the Ohel Moed. And what happens? Everything stops. It's like, right, we're having an argument, and who walks into the room? Kadosh Baruch Hu. Okay, we stop arguing. Right, our attention is now drawn to the presence of a Kadosh Baruch Hu that is showing up here in the midst of the argument. When Bnei Yisrael see the cloud descend on the Ohel Moed, remember, what cloud are we talking about? Okay, so there were a number of clouds that we're focusing on. There were the Ananei HaKavod. There were the clouds that surrounded Bnei Yisrael. Bnei Yisrael traveled in their own bubble. But there was also the Anan that directed them during the day. This Anan that when they were traveling, they weren't always traveling. A lot of times we know that they weren't traveling. But when they were traveling during the day, there was this Anan that was directing them. And they could see this Anan through the Ananei HaKavod. Exactly how that worked, I don't know. But they could see this Anan through the Ananei HaKavod. That Anan during the day turned into an Amud Eish, a pillar of fire at night. And when they traveled at night, they followed the direction of the pillar of fire. Okay? Now, this Anan, which represents Hashem's glory, the Ananei HaKavod also represented Hashem's glory, but in a different way, manifesting themselves as protection of Bnei Yisrael. This Anan, which would go before them, this Anan settles over the Ohel Moed. To everyone, that's a sign that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is here. Right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu is here. Now, what's going to happen as a result of that? So the argument, there's a pause. Vayavo Moshe v'Aharon el Pnei Ohel Moed. So whenever the cloud of Hashem's Shekhinah descends on the Ohel Moed, that is a sign that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is getting involved. Right? Now, halavai, we had that in our own lives, right? Kadosh Baruch Hu is always involved in our lives, but we don't see it all the time. We don't see it. Imagine living in a time when all of a sudden there'd be a knock on the door and there would be HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's what happened with the Ohel Moed. The cloud came down, everybody saw it. Everybody saw, here's HaKadosh Baruch Hu intervening. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't speak to the entirety of the Jewish people. That only happened at Har Sinai. That only happened at Har Sinai, and then only for the first of the two Dibros. Here, HaKadosh Baruch Hu speaks to Moshe, or to Moshe and Aaron, or to Moshe, Aaron, and Miriam. We've had all of those scenarios. So the cloud comes down, the divine doorbell is ringing. Who goes to answer it? Moshe and Aaron. Right? Vayavo Moshe v'Aharon el Pnei Ohel Moed. They come to the entrance to the Ohel Moed. Vayidaber Hashem el Moshe lemor. And Hashem now speaks to Moshe. And what does he say? He says, Heiromu mitoch ha'edah hazos. Heiromu means what? From the word, right? Rome, right? Or lihit romeim, to elevate oneself, right? Romamu, to get up. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you guys get up from among this people. Heiromu mitoch ha'edah hazos v'achale osam kiraga. And what's going to happen? That's it. They're done. I'm going to destroy them. They're done. Vayiplu al pneihem. What was the response of Moshe and Aaron? and they fell on their faces. Okay. Is this the first time that we have this God saying to them, separate yourselves, I'm going to destroy them. I've had enough. I'm going to destroy them. Separate yourselves. Okay, well, we don't even have to go back so far. Right? Go back just a page or two. Well, everybody's right. Everybody's a wise guy. Okay. All right, what do we see? Back at the page 820. Okay, I'm sorry. Let's go 824. Right, 824. V'yidaber Hashem al Moshe v'Aaron lemor. What did Hashem say? Hibadlu. Hibadlu and Heiromu are similar, for those of you who are into Digduk, similar kinds of grammatical conjugations. Hibadlu mitoch ha'edah hazos v'achale osam kiraga. Exactly like Heiromu mitoch ha'edah hazos, literally the same words, va'achale osam kiraga. Okay? And what's the response of Moshe and Aaron? Vayiplu al panehem. Vayiplu al panehem here. Okay?
There it says El Moshe, El Aharon, and here it just says El Moshe, but Vayiplu, they both go down.
Correct. I mean, we have certain...
No, I'm asking
right.
why.
Why here Hashem just spoke to Moshe?
Right.
Because here the complaint was really just against Moshe. Because it was at Moshe's direction. Even though it says, Vayikalu al Moshe v'al Aharon, Moshe was the prime target here. So therefore Hashem speaks to Moshe, whereas previously Hashem spoke to Moshe and Aaron. Here Hashem speaks to Moshe and says, okay, separate yourselves, I'm going to destroy them. So the Ramban asks a fascinating question. What does he say? Separate yourselves? Kadosh Baruch Hu needs Moshe and Aaron to separate themselves from the people? I mean, not only here, but, a page ago. Think back to Makat Bechorot in Mitzrayim.
Mm-hmm.
What happened? What happened?
They saw that to put on the post the blood,
But that wasn't the God.
that was
In other words, right?
Nowhere to go.
Exactly who that was for, but I want to reference another idea. Said the Medrash talks about, and how do we learn Shmos? We would have known this, right? The Medrash talks about that if there were three Egyptian children sleeping together under one blanket, what would happen? What?
The firstborn.
God would kill the middle one, and the other two would be untouched. Meaning that God has the ability, right? Laser sharp. Thank you, lady in the blue. Right? Laser sharp. Right? That God has the ability, right, to do what? So you forgot we were even recording. God has the ability to pinpoint His punishment. What is this idea of, step away from the crowd so I can destroy them? You could stay there. I'll save you and I'll destroy them. Right? God is able. God in His punishment can separate between a Rasha and a tzaddik who are like this. God can separate between them.
So Noah didn't have to build a teva?
Oh, hold on a second.
To do your effort.
Okay. Let's see what the Ramban says here, and let's see if we can then take that and apply that. So says the Ramban, okay, why then does God say this? Why does He say it? Why does He say it here in our pasuk, and why does He say it a pasuk, a few psukim ago? Obviously, He can do that. So the Ramban gives two different answers. The Ramban first he references here, and the Ramban says when God is talking about now destroying the Jewish people, he intends to destroy them in the same way in which Korach, Dasan, Aviram, and the 250 men were punished. Korach, Dasan, and Aviram were swallowed up with an earthquake. The 250 men were punished by this divine fire. Says the Ramban that because Bnei Yisrael are complaining about these individuals, God is going to punish them the same way, sort of like midah keneged midah idea. So says the Ramban, if we're all sitting together and there's an earthquake and this room is about to be swallowed up, what's going to happen to all of us?
Go down with the ship.
We're right. We're going to be swallowed up in the earthquake, right? Even the righteous among us are going to be swallowed up in the earthquake, because an earthquake is a natural kind of phenomenon, right? What happened in when it took Korach, Dasan, and Aviram? Everything just came, everything was just funneled into this opening in the earth. What would have to happen in order for, let's say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu looked at our class and he said, you know what? There's a lot of tzaddikim, or I should say tzidkanios in this class, and I don't want to, I want to save some of them. So what would have to happen? There would have to be a
Miracle.
second miracle. In other words, one miracle would be the opening of the earth to swallow all of us. The second miracle would be there's going to be some of us, probably some of you, I should say, who are going to be like suspended in midair, while the rest of us are going down, right?
Why not?
No, so says the Ramban that why should God have to do two miracles? In other words, it's not like God has a limited number of miracles, right? He can only do, once his miracles run out, so then we're in trouble, right? It's not like, right? God could do as many miracles as he needs to do, as he wants to do, as he sees fit to do. But says the Ramban, God doesn't do miracles unnecessarily. And since God doesn't do miracles unnecessarily, if he can simply say, okay, you guys move away, and I'll have the earth swallow up everybody else, that is the preferred choice, says the Ramban, because it involves one miracle, as opposed to, okay, Moshe Aaron, you stay there. The earth is opening up. This divine fire is coming down. I'll make sure the two of you are fine. Right? Why does there have to be a second miracle on top of the first? So in effect, God says, listen, guys, move out of the way so I can just take care of these guys. I'll do one miracle, solve the problem, finish it that way. That's one interpretation which the Ramban gives. But he gives a second interpretation as well. And what is that? The second interpretation is that God won't destroy the people out of respect for Moshe and Aaron. In other words, as long as Moshe and Aaron are there holding on, so what happens? Out of kavod for them, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not going to destroy the people. Sort of like if you've ever had someone that you love who's dying, so you try to hold on. It's like almost as if your being there is going to stop this person from dying. Back to the days of Yirmiyahu and the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. Right? As long as Yirmiyahu was in Yerushalayim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu would not destroy the Beis HaMikdash. What did HaKadosh Baruch Hu do? He had to send Yirmiyahu out on a mission. And when Yirmiyahu was out on the mission, HaKadosh Baruch Hu destroyed the Beis HaMikdash. HaKadosh Baruch Hu had the Beis HaMikdash destroyed. Why? Obviously, HaKadosh Baruch Hu could have destroyed the Beis HaMikdash with Yirmiyahu there. But out of respect for what Yirmiyahu represented, HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, okay, you leave, and then I'll take care of the Beis HaMikdash. Right? So the idea here is that out of kavod for Moshe and Aaron, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you leave, and I'll destroy the people. Yes, lady in the back.
Between page 824 and 828, when God wanted to
By us, 5 years.
Like,
I
overnight?
I don't know.
A few hours?
Hard to tell. Hard to tell. Like how much time? I don't imagine it was a long time. Like it wasn't years. Wasn't years.
Days?
Right? Could have been days. Could have been hours. Could have been days. I don't know.
It's like Shivula Hatem.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Meaning?
Sending away the.
Oh,
Like that.
nice idea. Sending away the mother bird before taking the young. Okay. By the way, why the difference over there in pasuk chaf bet? Right. What in the previous pasuk, the previous perek pasuk chaf bet? What did it say? It said hibadlu. Right. Hibadlu. What it was? I'm sorry. Not chaf aleph says hibadlu. Right. Hibadlu mitoch ha'ida. What does it say here? Heiromu mitoch ha'ida. What's the difference? Art Scroll translate them.
Remove.
And what does it say by the other one?
Hibadlu,
Separate yourselves. Okay, so that's a little bit similar. Rav Chaim Paltiel, who was a 13th century Rishon, lived in France and in Germany, says, explaining the difference between Hibadlu and Heiromu, says, back there when Kadosh Baruch said Hibadlu, they were together with Korach, Dosan, Aviram, and everybody else. Here, what happened? Remember, Bnei Yisrael complained. In the middle of their complaining, the Shekhinah comes down. Moshe and Aaron, that's the divine knock on the door. Moshe and Aaron go over to answer the door. They go over to the Ohel Moed. They're now separate from everybody else. So before they weren't separate. So Kadosh Baruch said, separate yourselves. Hibadlu. Here they're separate already. So Kadosh Baruch says, hey Romu, get yourselves up. Right? Go to a different place. Right? Go upstairs. Go to your room. Right? Go to a different place. Go upstairs. Separate yourself out, and that's where. And then so that's the difference. Rav Chaim Paltiel says between Hibadlu and Heiromu. What's the response of Moshe and Aaron? What's the response? Vayiplu al pneihem. Right? They fell on their faces. They fell on their faces in both places. Look back at pasuk chaf aleph. In the previous parak, Tes Zayin, what does it say? Vayiplu al pneihem. They fell, pasuk chaf bet, right? Vayiplu al pneihem. They fell on their faces. What did they do here?
Great.
The end of our pasuk, Vayiplu al pneihem. They fell on their faces. But what's the difference between the two places? Look in pasuk chaf bet. Vayiplu al pneihem. Vayomru el Elokei haruchos lechol basar. Right? What did they do after they fell on their faces?
They pleaded.
They spoke. They asked.
They prayed.
Yeah.
They talked to a Kadosh Baruch Hu.
Yeah.
We prayed
Right?
for coming.
They prayed. What's the response here? What does the Torah tell us? Vayiplu al pneihem.
And the pasuk ends, and then they.
That's it. That's it. The next pasuk we'll learn is already later. Here, the response is, God says, I'm going to destroy them. Vayiplu al pneihem. They fell on their faces. There, God said, I'm going to destroy them. Vayiplu al pneihem. They fell on their faces. Vayomru, and they said to God, they davened to God. Why didn't they daven here? Why didn't they daven here?
What I wanted to say was maybe the difference between the wording that you were discussing.
Hibadlu and Heiromu.
Right. It's because it gives Moshe a chance to respond in some way, which he is doing here.
Here, he's not responding at all.
He's saying, shall you kill all these people for one man's sin, or?
The plague started.
We're already into the plague.
Oh,
Right, next week things are hopping. Right, we're already into the plague. Right, Vayiplu al pneihem. They fall on their faces.
it was
Right,
entertaining.
end of story.
Right.
Right, the plague has already started from next pasuk. There, Vayiplu al pneihem, they davened. So what's the difference? What's the difference? So it's interesting. The Baal HaTurim says that here they didn't pray. Why? Shelo hayasah tefillah shkura b'fihem. What does that mean? Shelo hayasah tefillah shkura b'fihem.
They always used to pray, not now.
The words didn't come. The words didn't come. Now, we learned previously, we saw the Medrash when we learned that pasuk. When we learned that previous pasuk Chafbet. So we saw the Medrash there. What did the Medrash say? Okay, miyad nizda'aza Moshe mipnei hamachlokas. Moshe's response, his reaction was utter despair. Utter despair.
The first time was
Shaking. This is the previous pasuk, right? Shaking. Mipnei shekvar haya biyadan sarchon rivi'i. Because what was this? Why was Moshe so upset the previous time? Because it was already the fourth time. And because it was already the fourth time, Moshe was like, I can't believe this. Like, what's going to be? Says the Medrash, Mashul leven melech, I hope this rings a bell, Mashul leven melech shesarach al aviv. Right? A parable, a king's son who spoke out against his father. Right? Upies alav ohavo. And what happened? The friend of the son, who was the friend of the king, right? The king got angry at his son. The friend was able to intervene. Don't get so angry. Okay. The second time and the third time, what happened? The same thing, right? The king got angry, and the ohev, the friend of the son, said to the king, "Don't get so angry." Revi'is, the fourth time. Nisrashlu yedei ohavo shel hamel. Right? What happened? The fourth time, the friend said, "How many? Right? How much more can I do this?" Amar kama pa'amim atriach es hamelech. How many times can I bother the king? That's what Moshe's response was here, and we're talking about not our vayiplu al pneihem. The time before already. The time before, what happened? Moshe was beside himself because he was thinking, how many times can I intervene on behalf of my people? This was already the fourth time. But Egel, that was the first time. What was the response? Vayichal Moshe. That's what we'll read on a fast day. Right? Vayichal Moshe, Moshe davened, Moshe intervened. The second time, Vayihi Amas Kimis Onanim, when the people were complaining, Vayispalel Moshe.
complaining of what?
Right? Here they were complaining because they didn't have meat. All right? Vayispalel Moshe, Moshe davened. The third time by the Meraglim. And what happened? Vayomru Moshe el Hashem v'shamu Mitzrayim. What did Moshe say? What are the Goyim going to say? Right? In all of these instances, Moshe intervened. B'machlokso shel Korach amar kama uchal lahatriach es hamakom. Right? What happened? Moshe said, how many times can I intervene on behalf of this people? V'af al pichein, what happened? They fell on their faces and they davened. This time, says the Balaturim, this time what happened?
It was all out.
Shelo hayasah tefillah shkura b'fihem. Now, this is actually a great reference to a Gemara in Maseches Brachos. The Gemara in Maseches Brachos, it's a Mishnah, and the Mishnah says as follows. Hamispalel v'ta'a. A person who davens, v'ta'a. What's v'ta'a? Makes a mistake, ta'ut. Hamispalel v'ta'a. Sometimes I don't know if it ever happens to you, but sometimes I'm davening and I'll say to myself, where am I? Like, did I say Shema? Unfortunately, I mean, I'm sure it doesn't happen to any of you, but it happens to me. Right? It happens to me. In the middle, I'm like, wait a second, Sim Shalom, like, what happened to all those other brachos? Right? Did I say all of those? Right? Okay. So hamispalel v'ta'a, a person who davens and makes a mistake, says the Mishnah, siman ra lo. What is that? It's a bad sign. It's a bad sign. Right? It's a bad sign. The implication of the Mishnah being that God is saying, don't bother me. Don't bother me. You think you're praying and this is what you're doing? Siman ra lo. V'im shliach tzibur hu, this is even worse. V'im shliach tzibur hu, siman ra lisholchav. So if the shliach tzibur makes a mistake, it's not only bad news for the shliach tzibur, the person who's davening on behalf of the tzibur, it's bad news for the tzibur, for the kehila. Because we have a principle, shlucho shel adam k'moso, that a person who you send, who you designate as your agent, that person can act on your behalf as if he was you. The classic case, which the Gemara in Maseches Kiddushin brings, is, let's say I want to get engaged. I live on the East Coast, but I want to get engaged I always wanted to marry a woman on the West Coast, right? So, but I'm not schlepping to the West Coast to marry her or to get engaged. It's not worth it, right? I'll marry her, but I'm not schlepping to the West Coast to get engaged. So what do? So I say to my friend, listen, Chaim, do me a favor, all right? You go to the West Coast and you engage this woman to me. Betroth this woman to me. I want you to act as my shaliach. And what happens? Chaim goes. He says, I'm here on a mission. My mission is to betroth you to my good friend. Right? He gives her the ring. He says, hooray, the whole business. She's betrothed. As if I went myself. Shlucho shel adam kemoso. Now here's an interesting twist on the story. What happens if Chaim gets there and says, whoa, he's my friend, but not this much of my friend. And Chaim says, how about you and I go out or something like that? And then Chaim decides to get engaged. All right, so then Chaim's engaged. It's interesting, right? If Chaim does that, you have to be careful who you send on your missions, right? But shlucho shel adam kemoso. So here the shliach tzibur is davening, but it's as if I'm davening. So if the shliach tzibur makes a mistake, it's bad for me, bad news for me. Amru, now listen to this story. It's a great story. Amru, it's a scary story. Amru alav al Rebbe Chanina ben Dosa. So they told the following about Rebbe Chanina ben Dosa. Now, those of you who remember when your children were younger or you have young grandchildren and you're reading those storybooks about the Chachamim, great stories about Chanina ben Dosa. Tremendous stories, huge stories about Rebbe Chanina ben Dosa. Right? So here, then what does the Mishnah say? Thank you for catching that. What does the Mishnah say? The Mishnah says, Shahaya mispalel al hacholim. What did Rebbe Chanina ben Dosa? Rebbe Chanina ben Dosa was this tremendous tzaddik. So he used to go and he used to daven on behalf of people who were sick. Shahaya mispalel al hacholim. Va'omer, and he would say, Zeh chai v'zeh mes. And what would he say after he davened? This one's going to live, this one's going to die. Now, the Meforshim struggle with, did he really say that? Like, that's not a particularly encouraging thing. You're standing there davening for someone, and then you say, you know what? You're not going to make it. Right? Is that what Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa, is that what he said? Is that Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa said? So the Meforshim explain on the Mishnah, no, that's not really, he didn't really say that, but people could sometimes tell by his facial expressions what it was. Amru lo, so the people around said to Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa, maybe his Talmidim said, Minayan atayodeh, how do you know if this person's going to live and this person's going to die? Obviously, he was correct. other words, when Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa davened over someone and he said, this person's going to live, that's what happened. And Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa davened for someone, he said, this person's going to die, that's what happened. So, Amrulo, they said to him, how do you know that? So Amar Lahem, so he said to them, Im shgura tfilasi befi, if the words come easily to me, right? If the tefillah happens easily, I don't mean easily meaning like rote and routinely easily. I mean easily like naturally, meaningfully. Sometimes it's easier to, right? So he says, when that happens, Yodea ani shehu mikubal, I know that the prayer was accepted. V'im lav, and if not, Yodea ani shehu mituraf, I know that the prayer has not been accepted, it's been rejected. So Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa was such a tzaddik that when he davened for someone who was sick, he knew whether that person would live or die based on how his tefillah felt. When his tefillah felt good to him, felt meaningful to him, felt easy for him, shgura b'fiv literally means it was comfortable in his mouth. Right? So when that happened, he knew that his tefillos would be accepted and the person would live. And when it wasn't shgura b'fiv, when he was struggling, when the tefillah was not, so then he knew it wasn't. He knew that his tefillah was being mixed up so that it would not be effective. HaKadosh Baruch Hu was saying, no, I'm not going to accept your tefillos. I don't want your tefillos. This person's going to die. Now, obviously, you have to be Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa to be on that kind of level, to be able to say, either a person's going to live or a person's going to die. We're obviously not on that level, but a Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa, okay, was on that level. So that's what the Baal Turim is saying here. Baal Turim is saying, Moshe, vayiplu al peneihem, but the tefillah couldn't come. The tefillah couldn't come. Right? It was like HaKadosh Baruch Hu was not giving Moshe the chance to daven. He had enough, so to speak. HaKadosh Baruch Hu was not giving Moshe Rabbeinu the chance to daven. And what happens next? The plague starts right away. This plague starts, right? And that's where our focus will go. Now, I don't want you to think that if you go to daven for someone and it's that's a siman that the person's not going to get better, right? You have to be on the level of a Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa, right, for that to happen. We should start simply with Shmona Esrei. Let me work on Shmona Esrei before I start davening and knowing whether people are going to live or die. I'll work on Shmona Esrei. Start there, okay? But that's the idea. Yes.
Did Hashem not allow the words to come from Moshe because he didn't want to reject his tefillah? He had enough cover.
It's interesting.
For him.
So that's the wording of the Mishnah about Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa, right? It says mituraf, right? What does mituraf mean? What's the word of mituraf? Treif, right? Mituraf meaning that the words couldn't come out. It's almost as if, how did Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa know that this person was going to die? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu was plugging up his tefillah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu was stopping his tefillah. Meaning HaKadosh Baruch Hu was saying, Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa, I don't want you to daven for this person, because I know if you daven for this person, what's going to happen? I have to accept your daven. I have to accept your tefillos.
Moshe's tefillah
right?
didn't even get off the ground.
So that's right. So that's like, what did HaKadosh Baruch Hu say? It's almost as if HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, don't even say a word. Right? I know what's going to happen. If you daven for them, I'm not going to be able to do this. So, sort of like the Eschanan, right? Right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to Moshe Rabbeinu, not another word. Because if you say another word, I'm going to have to listen to you and let you go into Eretz Yisrael. Not another word. Okay? So, that's the idea here. So, that their tefillah was not shkura b'fihem. It wasn't coming out. It was as if HaKadosh Baruch Hu was stopping it so that this punishment could now take place. This divine plague, which is about to happen, and that's what we're going to, Im Yirtzeh Hashem, focus on next week. Okay? Yes?
What about the Erev? The people who left Egypt, they're not the most people that were complaining.
The Erev Rav?
Yeah.
No.
So, it's not Bnei Israel.
But this is not the Erev Rav here.
No.
This is not...
What happened with Erev Rav?
Oh, you're saying before the Erev Rav was complaining. So you're asking a question on the Medrash. It really wasn't Bnei Yisrael all of these times. It was, okay, interesting question. Interesting question. Okay, everybody.
Thank you.
Most of